This is a screencast covering Jquery Mobile. And if you're comfortable with Jquery, at this point you should be comfortable with Jquery Mobile as well and what it does and what its weaknesses and strengths are. So I'm at jquerymobile.com, and the best way to go over this is to go through the demos. And I'm going to show you a multi-page template. This is the latest stable version of the demos. And specifically, we'll cover pages and navigation. So the way it works is you have your typical HTML5 template with the typical viewport, width equals divides width, initial scale. That's all the same. And then what you'll do is call Jquery Mobile below the Jquery Min. So as we scroll down here, the important part of this is that each page in your website, if it's a Jquery Mobile website, is going to have a data role attribute that equals page. So the way it works is you would have one website loaded into one file, and that file would have multiple pages. So what you see right here with the data role equals page with header and a content and footer, that would be repetitious. So a single page would look something like this, where you have the data role page, a header, a main role, and which is content, and then a data role footer. And then once we go to multi-page, we just repeat it. So here you see the start of the first page and then the start of the second page. So if we look at this right now, and it's at its bare minimum style, which is one of its drawbacks, you have the ability to do pop-up dialogues, but we can also do transitions and things like that, and that's all one page. So if you look at the URL up here, you'll see that page 2 is nothing more than the hashtag 2 going as an anchor to that second page. So as I hit the back button here and we go back to our multi-page structure, right here we look at the demo, you see there's 1 and now here's 2. Here's ID foo, ID bar. So you would link to each one of these data role IDs. When you want to see, here's ahref hashtag foo, which goes back to ID foo. So it's not uncommon to have a full Jquery Mobile website that has numerous pages. And I've used it for a few native apps that were just static with no data coming in. I'll show you an example of one real quick. This is an app for the drug Bezavance, and I can go ahead and I can swipe, I can play a video, but basically on here you can do tabs. This is one page. So on each one of these things, prescribing, that should go down. But regardless, I'm using something called Ripple on this, and I'm going to go ahead and look at all the other pages. So this is the home page, and you can do a nice little menu here, and this is again all one little page, and it loads super fast. So I took it into Cordova and published it as a native app and then sold it to the medical community. So this is all using nothing but Jquery Mobile. Now the thing is that when you get it, you get stuck with this default theme, the default theme that's not very attractive, which we just looked at. So what you can do is use your own CSS overrides, which is a little bit of a challenge, or you can use something called Theme Roller, which I'm going to go to the home page here, and this is Theme Roller for Jquery Mobile, and this is where you can choose your colors, and actually it'll export the default CSS. So a lot of people will choose to use this as well. In my case, my design was so far off that I couldn't use this in that Bezavance example. But Jquery Mobile, so let's say we wanted to choose, and again this uses Adobe Cooler, but you can choose your font and you can have swatches for your project. And then at the end of the day, all you have to do is download your zip, and then you just replace the CSS folder. I'll show you what it looks like. See this custom my theme CSS? You just replace the current theme with what you have, and then it gets to be a little bit more of a effect of you creating it instead of borrowing from Jquery Mobile. Now Jquery Mobile uses the Jquery UI framework for much of its touch functionality, and let's look at that real quick. I've got Jquery UI up, and when you download this, it comes with a bunch of touch events and different effects. So and we were talking about plugins, and you probably read something about the widget factory in your reading this week, and the widget factory is where we can make custom widgets for Jquery UI. as well as plugins, and those plugins can be a widget. Anyway, when you look at something like this for touch events on a touch screen, let's say it's an iPad or a kiosk, you're going to want to use the jQuery UI library. And I'd like to show you an example of that as well. So I did a kiosk a few months ago, and this is the kiosk. It's for an acne medicine. And this screen sits on the kiosk, and it's all touch-based. And the first time you run it, by the way, it'll look like this, but once it loads, you're good. So this is all powered with the touch end and the touch events offered by jQuery Mobile. And again, this is the web version. When you load it up on a kiosk, it's going to be a little bit more compiled. You don't have to waste time. You just have to run this once, and then it compiles. So the idea is you throw it on the kiosk, and then you just make sure it runs. So little effects like these fades and opacities are based on basic jQuery, but I'm using the jQuery UI so that it has touch events. So something like this, where I click on this, and I have a little slide for each one, and back to the micronized, you can see that's a jQuery UI animation. So if you're just using a native app and you want to do a static native app with jQuery, you can use jQuery Mobile, and that'll piggyback off the jQuery UI touch interface. If you're doing things like a kiosk or a static web presence, this is all HTML5, by the way, you're going to want to use the jQuery UI network, and I'll show you how it's set up here. Here's jQuery.js, and here's jQuery UI. So this is an example of jQuery UI without jQuery Mobile, where I'm just utilizing the touch events on the jQuery UI. And when you work with these things, you want to reduce the bloat. So you'll see that very little of my work here is, most of it's just jQuery, simple jQuery calls, little things like animation, delay, things like that. And they're just separate slides. So it's very lowbrow, and I try not to bloat my applications. Of course, with a kiosk, everything's preloaded, so I don't have to worry about the hesitancy of the loading like that page did. It's already precompiled. So it depends what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to achieve a native app off HTML5, jQuery Mobile's a decent choice because it compiles. If you're doing kiosks, I've had luck with just jQuery UI as far as getting the effects to work pretty seamlessly. And I like this one, for example. That's double animations. You've got the dot, you've got the output, and then the expansion, and then a fade in at the 10 microns. So that, I'm not going to say it couldn't be done with. It could be done with vanilla JavaScript, but in my field, I had to put apps together super fast, and jQuery UI is what I go to when I need a kiosk done, and jQuery Mobile is what I usually do if I need a native app done really quick, and I don't have time to code it natively with Swift or Objective-C or Java or some of the native languages. But I think both these things need to be part of your arsenal, and have an open mind. And just know that if it's compiled, you don't have to worry about a network connection, and therefore you don't really have to worry about things downloading. Would I try this on a traditional website? I don't think I'd ever do a jQuery Mobile website. I think I would just make I'd go in there with Bootstrap and or Foundation, one of the grid-based responsive frameworks, and I'd let that do my work for me instead of pulling in the bloat of jQuery Mobile. Anyway, that's a brief, 8.5 minute overview of these technologies, and I've introduced you to jQuery Mobile, jQuery UI, and Theme Roller. So if there are any questions, don't hesitate to email me.